Welcome to the UpLevel Podcast. Carlo and Heather, it's about time.
Thanks, Christy.
It is about time. You know, the listeners have heard that this is our final conversation on right relationship, and they've heard why we really wanted it to be with the two of you. So before we go more into some of those stories, let's just start with each of your definition with this term we've been exploring for 15 months, right relationship. Carlo, you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Christy. What does it mean to me? Gosh, I feel like I've been in experiments or iterations of this for at least 10 years. I think what it means to me right now is to be fully in my own, a term we use sometimes in our work together, is my own self-acceptance and my courageous convictions, like stand fully in both and be malleable enough to be shaped by another, whether that's you, Christy, or you, Heather, in our work together. So it's this, this paradox or this polarity of strong, firm, and clear, and soft, malleable, and flexible at the same time. And that those are the conditions, I think, for right relationship. That's where I'd start.
How about you, Heather?
Love that. This has been so fun to think about. Because while I'd like to think, when you asked me to do this podcast around how I just decided and learned these things on my own, as I start to think about it, it does span over my whole life of how I think about this, of how I've continued on this journey. And especially right now, in this day and age that we're in, it's so incredibly important. And, when I think about right relationship and relating, and I'm so lucky I get to relate to the two of you all the time, which makes my job so much more fun and easy and special. But it really is about how to co-create together. And that starts with the self. I can't do everything that I need to do in the world by myself. It's not possible, and we're not set up to do that. And so I need others, and that means I need to know myself. I need to understand others, and then we need to collaborate, innovate, and co-create together. And so when I think about right relationship, it really starts with the intention of we can't do it alone, and we need to be with others in right relationship to find success in any element of our lives.
Mic drop. I'm end the podcast now, Heather. See, folks, this is one of the many reasons we love working with Heather Davidson. Brilliant human, brilliant designer, brilliant partner. So let's actually share a little bit, Heather, if you're willing. What is the high level of the work that we've been able to do together over this past while, and we'll continue to for a few years?
Yeah. I feel so lucky to have a role in Google that fulfills me, not only professionally, but personally. And part of that has been working with UpLevel to be able to help our Google sales leaders be in right relationship through the power of coaching.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing this work for 2 years now together. And it has been a journey, and there have been many times where we've had to downshift, upshift into what version of right relationship do we need with whom to continue to do the work that we know is so critical for them. And especially when they get out of our program and the response that's generated. And so bringing this to them has been really fulfilling. So that's kind of high level around the work that we've been doing at Google and the audience that we've been doing with and the success that we've had.
And Carlo, we brought you in, UpLevel brought you in because of your unique skill set of really helping to shape and design a program of this magnitude and scale And so we've got microcosms of relationships within the three of us, and to the work and to the stakeholders and to the folks that we're serving. Carlo, what has it been like for you?
Coming into the work?
Yeah.
Well, I'll never forget you cornering me in a vineyard near your house in Niagara on the Lake. We'd gone for a walk. I think we'd actually just led a Google program, not one of these ones.
We did.
And you said, I think I found the part of Google that's next. But it's big. Like, they're a big deal. It's a big deal. What are you doing for the next couple of years? And I think, you and I, Christy, we've had a history for over 15 years, I think it is now, or it might be 15 years this year. And one of the things I've always appreciated about our relationship is it's felt right, in that it hasn't always been easy. In the different configurations of the roles that we've intersected in, it's probably been 3 or 4. You've worked for me, I've worked for you, we've been peers and things. There's just an instinct I have around wanting to work with you. And this was one of the opportunities that just felt like an opportunity to honor the right relationship we had and go create something with Google. And I hadn't met Heather yet. So it felt right coming into the UpLevel ecosystem to do this. It was also a period of time when your co-leader, Rachel, was stepping out. So that felt right for me to support the two of you. And then I think the other thing about right relationship is it honors the skills, strengths, and contributions people have to make. And I've been, since the get-go, very well set up and positioned and engaged in this work, in a good use of me, for design, for the co-leading that we do, and how Heather and I work on aspects of it, and then how you and Heather work on aspects of it. So I love what Heather said about downshifting or upshifting, because the projects descale in size, then they grow in scale and size. And I think one of the things we've done well as a whole group, generally speaking, is that when things have changed, we've gotten back in conversation and relationship about it first, before deciding what we were going to do about the change.
Yeah.
I find in a lot of organizations, it's the other way around. The change comes, we make the change, and then the relationship gets messed up. And that makes the change harder. And so that's one of the things I've appreciated about the work we've done so far over the last year and a half.
There's so much modeling in what you all do and the core skills that you're bringing to Google leaders. And sometimes it's so seamless that it's hard to see it, right? And even amongst our leaders. And I think, Carlo, what you just said reminded me of how we have designed that alliance. We continue to design the alliance, but we also continue to kind of flow in and out with each other. And somehow it always just comes together, even if we're not saying directly, like, I'm meeting with Chrissy on this and I'm doing with Carlo with that. And this is not, it's not always task oriented.
Yeah.
But I love that frame of we're all using our super strengths, and we've got the vision of what we want to accomplish, and we're all in right relationship, working towards that vision, using the strengths that we have to create that success. And I definitely feel that as we've worked on this project together. And I know that that's translated not only to our team at Google that we work with to activate our program managers, our producers, our stakeholders, our subject matter experts, all of that, but also to our end customer.
Well said. It's and it's been reflected in the results. 100% CSAT scores. I mean, hello. Let's keep going for that. Let's keep going for that. And 98% facilitation satisfaction, which feels real good. Real good to be on the end of receiving those kind of results in such important work. And I know one of the things Carlo and I have talked a lot about, Heather, and we've talked about it with you and some of your other colleagues, is it feels important for us to be bringing this kind of work into an organization like Google. With with all of the influence and the good work that the company is doing around AI. And I'm really grateful that we're getting to do this with a portion of the business that also has such a big influence on the entire ecosystem of Google. Carly, you want to talk
Agreed.
a little bit about, like, you've got a real stake around. Yeah.
Well, I think actually you said the word stake. One of the things, I'm just going to backtrack for a sec, is when you're talking about the customer satisfaction scores and the great ratings the program's got, we sat down, I think when we first sat down, we had a desire for that kind of outcome. It's not what we designed ourselves around. We designed ourselves around wanting to create a certain impact through the work that translated into these sales leaders being affected in a series of ways. And we trusted that if we held to that design in our roles, we call that thing a stake, at least in coactive language. If we held, designed, created, operationalized, and led from that, the right results would come. Maybe right results come from right relationship. I don't know. So, but I know I can get seduced to then just wanting to keep getting those results. And so it's important. I have to remind myself to keep going back to what are we designing for and why? And like, what's the end state of the experience we want to create? So yeah, I wanted to say that part about stake. To your question about Google, it's good work in the world, like leader in the technology space, huge investor, leader in artificial intelligence. One of the stands I'm taking right now is that as we embrace the acceleration of artificial intelligence, we must also accelerate our own ability to remember or upskill our natural intelligence as humans. So that means continuing to better understand our capacities for empathy, our capacities for discernment, our capacity for our own unique critical thinking, instinct, all those sorts of things. If we just outsource some of this fundamental intelligence to artificial intelligence, we will come out of right relationship, not only with us and it, but with each other more and more so. And so one of the things that I'm proud of this program doing is that it invites these sales leaders into really remember the kinds of things that create right relationship with their teams and customers, but also that it'll help them meet the moment as the technology continues to become more enhanced and powerful and those sorts of things. So artificial intelligence and natural intelligence, we're discovering what that right relationship will be. And, we've got a handful of years to do it.
I cannot do my job anymore without using AI. It's been incredible, the learning curve, trajectory, and path by which myself and others that I talk to are using AI. And Carlo, I think that's what you said is exactly how I think about it. It's an enabler, right? It enables me. But I always have to put my spin on it, my context, my empathy, my perspective, my personality. Like I find a lot of times that I'm injecting my personality into some of the work that it gives back, which is the empathy, the pieces that you talked about, the emotional intelligence that it doesn't have. And so using AI has been such like an amazing ability as we start to scale the program and thinking about standardizing processes and how are we making sure that the things that happened organically and inorganically in our pilots, that we continue to have those elements so we can continue to get that success, but also not become attached to the success.
Yeah.
Non-attachment. I'm practicing it today.
Well, it's a good thing to be practicing in this moment in time too. Another reason why UpLevel chose to explore right relationship is because we realize on the planet how far away we've gone from it with all the constant crisis, chaos, and change. And so when I think about the work that we're doing together, and you said it, Heather, I appreciate it, is like all of us modeling the work, not just being transactional and putting together a program and then delivering it, but actually participating in the skills and concepts and embodying them while we're together doing this. This feels really, really important. I know it's one of the ways that I am resourcing myself during these times to be in right relationship is by being the work, not just talking about it or delivering it. What are some ways that each of you are resourcing yourself to restore a right relationship when there is an imbalance during these lovely times we're navigating?
During the imbalance that happens every 30 seconds.
Every 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds.
Why don't you talk about how you're managing imbalance first, Heather?
Would love to.
Yeah.
I do feel like it's a very challenging times right now. And I'm so grateful that I have a practice of righting the relationship with myself and the world and others. And part of your question is, what do I do? And meditation and yoga have been part of my life for 25 plus years now. And that's how I restore myself. That's how I check in with myself. That's how I challenge myself. And keeping those practices going is what keeps me going, and what keeps my ego in check, which keeps my playfulness there, which keeps my optimism up and my gratitude. And so I couldn't be more grateful for yoga and meditation in these times.
I'm not as disciplined as Heather these days. It's interesting. I've had really rigorous practices in the past. I let's say I stepped away from my most recent one a couple of years ago. And I'm in the contemplation of what is the next practice. And some of the foundations are the things that Heather talks about, which I do periodically, but not as a practice. I will say two of the things one thing I have a high discernment around is the quality of people I spend most of my time with. You two included, because I do believe that the experience I have and the people that I get to relate to and their orientation, temperature, vibration, commitment, whatever it is, that affects my own experience of the world firsthand. While also holding in the other hand some of the news we get on an hourly basis or daily basis, which has a bunch of examples of the opposite of right relationship. I don't want to call it wrong relationship, but it's, maybe that's another podcast. So that's one, discernment around who am I spending most of my time with?
That's great.
The other one is I can get really serious and intense when it comes to work and wanting to make a difference. And so daily injections of joy, even if they're small, like right before this podcast, we're it's spring break here. Our two kids they're coaching skiing. I went and skied for like half an hour just to be outside, which before I would have sat down and like made more time for work. And it just has me show up more refreshed, more present, and I think more creative. Like I can both create more from what's happening and I get created more by what's happening. So I think people and places or experiences of joy are two of the things that I'm finding really useful.
Yeah.
You're reminding me, Carlo, of one of my mentors, who's Baron Baptiste, who is a yoga practitioner that I've read all his books and have loved. And he always says, don't try hard, try easy. And I think about that all the time, especially when I'm like, what you do. Like I'm about to get harder with myself on work, I'm about to go hard. Oh, I'm like, oh, this is so challenging. I'm like, what would it be like if it were easy? But I love that about just giving yourself the space to refresh, so you can be more innovative, move with more velocity. It's so important.
And you're speaking to the mindset shift, like reframes, not at the sake of bypassing, because there's some real things that we all need to be paying attention to and probably processing in this moment. And it is very helpful to reframe. Carlo, you asked me, so I'm really working to regulate my nervous system. And I think you and I talked about this. A lot of the folks that we are doing, say, one-on-one work with, coaching, executive leadership coaching, what I'm noticing is that they're coming to us to create spaces so that they can regulate, because so many people are dysregulated, rightly so. And so for me, right relationship is I have to regulate myself, or then I cannot show up and do this work in the world, not in integrity, not in right relationship. Doesn't mean I don't have bad days or days where I'm more centered or grounded and less, centered or grounded. But one of the things I do, and the listeners who've been along the journey have heard this, is I'm in the jungle for this reason. I very intentionally moved my system to the jungle, so my proximity to nature was as close as you can get. So that's not everybody has that advantage. So I'm really clear that I have a lot of advantage that I was able to do that. But sitting in the water holes with letting that river water ground me, watching the birds, these things are so important right now. It also helps me remember that I'm very insignificant. Because I could start to think I'm significant. The work I'm doing in the world is significant. And yeah, this is good work that we're up to. And nature has been doing this far longer than we humans have. So respect. But to me, that's all right relationship right there. We've had a lot of Indigenous elders come and speak to us over this season, and other people who are really kind of dialed into that kind of work and bringing that relationship back to people. So I like to think sometimes at UpLevel, we're helping to be a bridge of that in some way, one way or another.
You certainly are. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead. Say it again.
I mean, you certainly are at Google, right? Like with everyone that we've touched, this idea of regulation, of like physiological awareness, right? And we do that in our program, right? We talk about what is the mindset that you are bringing, right? I talked about mindset. Don't try hard, try easy. That's a mindset, right? What mindset are you bringing to show up with? And then how are you checking in with yourself, right? On that mindset continually, because that's the energy, the presence, the neurological state that you'll bring where you are. And Chrissy, you mentioned environment. That's also a very critical part of that regulation of your physiology. And one of the things that UpLevel does in the classroom, it says no desks, chairs and a horseshoe. We're right there. We're all together, creating that environment. So there's so many overlays between what we're talking about today. And I just want to acknowledge that we're bringing that directly in the work that we do within Google and within the sales organization there.
Thank you, Heather.
As you're saying that, Heather, too, the design of the space that we train in is very like physicality forward, no desks. And I'm very aware in leading this work that part of my role is just like creating the energetic wave that as people begin to settle into what is an abnormal environment for many of them. No desks and no tech in the in-person program in one of the world's foremost tech companies.
Yeah.
What's amazing is all the participants know how to do it. As they warm up to it, begin to lean into it in their own way. And Christy, you've used this word in other contexts. There's definitely learning. Right relationship heals.
Oh, does it?
It actually heals a bunch of, whether it's the dysregulation or whether it's the sort of prior experiences that people have had and training systems or leadership systems. Like part of our hope from the program is that when participants have this experience and they go back to work with their people, they know how their mindset and their presence in and of itself could be the thing that changes the conversation without them saying a thing. And then what they say matters. But right relationship means like I'm aware of the weather system in me that I show up with, and that I look to nurture a certain kind of weather system in others that I feel will both serve the business, but also serve the people. So, and that's my latest ramble on right relationships. Snap, snap, snap.
Snap, snap, snap. Well said, Carlo Bos. Well said. So good. I'm curious if either of you and each of you, if you have any stories that feel appropriate to share about moments how right relationship restored you, or reshaped your, or maybe the question is, what are some moments that have reshaped your understanding of right relationship in really any context?
So many. What is appropriate?
There's an editing feature if we need it. Go for the one that comes to mind. And
it's just so interesting that this is not something that is taught in school, right? The context that you're talking about, Carlo, is this weather system you bring, your energetic presence, there's nothing to fix, right? I watched our leaders, our Google leaders in the course, just beginning to peel off the barriers of themselves and kind of restore to their authenticity, their vulnerability. And so, Chrissy, I'm thinking in the context of like, what's an example of that? That's like the modeling of just doing it first. Mm-hmm. Doing it first when it feels really not psychologically safe to do so. And modeling behavior. And then you hope that brings others along. And I can think of daily examples where that's happening, and co-creating in that moment.
I think one, and Christy, you were a part of this that stands out. And you've had, so I co-ran the Coactive Training Institute for 5.5 years. And for most of that time with a woman, Carrie Baker, who still is running CTI, and I think has been on the podcast.
She sure has. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so Carrie and I were co-running CTI. And at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, CTI, 80% of our revenue was in-person training courses, in person. So you had to be live. And so when the pandemic washed across our world, starting in, Japan and China, and we saw our partners having to start to shutter their businesses because it was all in person, we were suddenly faced with this business situation that we had 80% of our revenue was turned off literally within a couple of weeks. And we didn't have a long cash runway to support the business. So, we didn't have experience running a business through a pandemic. Not many people did, but we also didn't have experience running businesses through major crises. So from a right relationship perspective, the first place we looked was, what's this business about? What does this business stand for? Like if this business ceased to exist, if CTI and through it, Coactive ceased to exist, what would go away? And it was really this legacy of what the core products teach, which is all about right relationship. It's being and doing, it's relating and action, it's all those sorts of things. So we started our strategic and operational response from there. That was the first thing. We started from the work, like the stake, and then made business decisions, which included like having to do a 40% OPEX reduction, like letting people go, lots of them. It included having to restructure the way that business was going to operate going forward. But I think for the most part, and what I'm proud of is we did it in right relationship.
Most definitely.
As openly as we could, as transparently as was available. We designed it. We actually created an intentional design. And that taught me a lot about like, start with what's at the heart of the matter. And right, if you started with what's at the heart of it, you're at least starting from a good place. And then the other is, and Christy, you're a great model of this, is we stayed in relationship all the time and tried to do that well within the hierarchy of an organization.
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to know everything all the time, even though part of me wanted to tell them that. So there's also, I think the other thing that I just say about it is it also began with mindset, because we went from COVID being this destroyer of our business into COVID being an ally. We began to see it as an ally here to teach us things that CTI had not wanted to learn or be taught before. And one was the work works online.
Yeah.
Up until that point, it hadn't gone online. So that mindset shift freed up a bunch of resistance. And the team that we had working on the products in particular did a miraculous job in going from nothing online, except for our certification program, to core products online. So mindset, and then start with what's at the heart of it and stay in relationship.
It's a great example. And that was,
I still like sort of shiver as I recall it. And it was challenging. It was hard.
It was a hard time.
But it was extremely, in the end of it, fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um,
and it's, for so many business leaders, this has been the current state for the past 6 years. Right? Just this constant barrage of whether it's layoffs or just acceleration. That's the word I'm going to use for it. And when I do think about what we're bringing into Google, and I say this in the classroom with folks, that these are relationship skills. And at the root of all the work that everyone is doing, even though there's products, there's sales, there's engineering behind all the good work, it all happens through relationship. So if we can all get, this is a Carloism, of 3 to 5% more effective at relationship. We call it coaching. Well, we're going to get 3 to 5% better relationships, which means we'll get better results, better output. And so, that keeps me going, that keeps me going to say, if we can just up that ante, have people be a little bit more skilled in relationship, it affects all the metrics and all the relationships.
Yeah.
The intention is so critical. Like, that's what I hear you saying, Carlo, and you, Christy. Like, what's the intention, right? Like, no matter where I've worked. So now I work at Google, but I've also worked at a video game company. I also worked at General Electric for 17 years. I worked on the manufacturing floor building appliances. And any work that I was doing with anyone, it starts with what's the intention. And I was thinking, as you were talking, Carlo, about working in GE Appliances, where we had the largest union. We had a very contentious relationship with them, and we wanted to change that. We wanted to change the way that we operated. We wanted to shift from a traditional manufacturing to a lean manufacturing facility. And it started with building the trust with the people on the floor doing the work, because in lean, it's all about who is doing the work and giving respect to those people. And the people in GE Appliances on the manufacturing floor had not ever received that type of respect. And so there was a distrust. And so working with folks and saying, our intention is to listen to you. Our intention is to make the work better by hearing what your problems and challenges are and fixing that. And building that intention and that trust over time and that right relationship started to change the entire facilities, right? We piloted in our American facilities and then spread it. So designing that whole socio-technical system around really, how do you bring right relationship into co-creating this? Techno part is like the task, and then the socio part is the social, and bringing those two together to co-create that success. And that's what we're doing at Google as well. Like, what's the task of sales, and how are we bringing the social element to it to make that even more successful?
Brilliant. Heather, it's not lost on me that we love working with you. You are a person who is able to like be in right relationship and restore it when it's off. Where does that come from? Like, if you take us a little bit behind the curtain of Heather Davidson, like, what would you attribute some of these values or qualities, the way you show up as a leader, as a human? Like, where is that stemming from?
I mean, I like to think it was all me, but it starts with where you are born and where you're raised and what you see around you. I went to Montessori school,
I did
which
too.
I think was see, like, Montessori, for those folks that don't know, is all about independent learning, like a fierce, independent, hands-on learning. And I am a lifelong learner. I love to learn, and I love to learn about people.
Yeah.
And so I think, where does it come from? I just am naturally curious about what others are doing and thinking.
Yeah.
And how can I learn from them and self-actualize? How can I make myself better?
Yeah.
By being, Carlo, you're talking about being around people that inspire you, that that to make you better. Like, every single person I can come in touch with, no matter who it is, I believe has something to teach me.
Mm.
And so, probably started with Montessori and then watching my parents and how they operated in the world. I had a parent that was in right relationship, and I had a parent who demonstrated maybe how to not be in right relationship some of the time. So learning from two examples of maybe what I wanted to inspire to do and maybe what I wanted to avoid, which led me to the path of how I wanted to be. And then the other piece is humor. I think that's just a necessary piece of operating within this world.
Thank you for giving us a little more insight into you. It's super cool. It has me go into deeper relationship with you to hear some of these origin stories of what, you believe has cultivated who you've become. How about you, Carlo? What would you say is some of the root of what's got you to this moment in time doing this kind of work in the world?
Well, one of the things that I'm struck by is from what Heather said is like watching the two of you find a connection around Montessori. It's like right relationship. I think it's an invitation into both celebrating uniqueness, but also finding commonality. And that, like, I don't only accept you if we have things in common, or I don't denounce myself if I think your uniqueness is more special than mine. I'm sort of making that up.
That's great.
So anyway, the uniqueness, and then the unique and the shared, all that kind of stuff. It's really, I think, really right. Someone said, I took a workshop once, and it was like, we'll have a relationship if we have a shared future together. Otherwise, relationships atrophy. It's like a way to keep deepening it is if we are in a shared future, a destination. It could be like in family, like, I guess family. So to your question, what informed mine? My interest in this work, I think, much like Heather, part of it is I loved it when I experienced it, and I got lost and scared when I didn't, when I was a kid, when right relationship wasn't there. I spent a lot of time outdoors growing up, and there was just something about, I wouldn't have the words for it then, but watching how natural systems operate in right relationship. Yeah. Everything plays its full part and doesn't try to be anything else.
So true.
Where, sometimes I try to be something that I'm not. And, Christy, you and I have had mentors and elders, like I'll name one, John Vercelli, who I think has been a really good model of that.
Oh, yeah.
For me, like just being who John is and not anything else.
I get to actually talk to him today. So
do you?
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Say hi to him for me.
I will.
What else around the founding of it? I think I have a core belief that this is something everybody wants in their life. Everybody wants to have an experience of right relationship some way, somehow.
Yeah.
And so if I can be an injection of that in a variety of ways, that feels like a good use of my life, like a good use. And so the first couple of times I experienced this, like my whole system, my mind, my body was like, this, do more of this.
Yeah.
Or put more of this into like right in front of you. And both my brothers, I've got 2 younger brothers, they do their own version of this work, and I watch how it shapes who they are as leaders and spouses and parents. And I find that that's pretty inspiring. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know, I hadn't contemplated that question. That'll be a question I'll continue to contemplate. Like,
it's a good inquiry. It's one to sit with over time. Totally. Well, I'm going to pull a few of the skills and concepts and contexts that I've heard both of you say in different answers to some of these questions. But if someone's to say, give me an operating model and how to be in right relationship. So Heather, you mentioned the designed alliance. That is something that, we are really hold true to. And it's not just one and done. It's like a reoccurring experience that we're making sure we do as a group of humans doing work together. Carlo, you mentioned the stake, and Heather, you used their word intention, and they're similar in coactive terms. We say stake. It's like we're orientated around a shared purpose, and we come back to that when and if things go off the rails, or there's difficulty, or there's changes, which there constantly are, because this is the moment in time we're living through. Listening, Heather, the story you shared, about like deep listening, that is such a foundational skill in right relationship and in what we're bringing to the Googlers and other leaders across other businesses that we're working with. What are some of the other skills and concepts you feel would be in the training deck for right relationship? And watch out, because Heather will go and build the most incredible train the trainer for this with like videos and like executive summaries. And it's so exceptional. It's so exceptional.
AI engagement mechanisms, like, yeah.
Can I just plus what you said, Christy, about deep listening?
Yeah.
Because I think it is, yes, deep listening to others, but it starts with deep listening of yourself. And I think that emotional awareness as a starting point for whatever is next, design alliance, deep listening to others, relating. I think for me, it starts there. I have to know where I am, what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling that way as an A position to do anything else in the world.
I'm thinking about it in the organizational context because of the work we do together. And I think one of the things that's key to right relationship is establishing like hierarchical power and authority dynamics. That exists in organizations. It also exists in family systems. It exists in community organizations. It's just being really clear and transparent on what are the role dynamics and who is in what seat in the relationship in this moment in time. So we may generally get to know each other human to human, to find out what matters to us, what makes us tick, where we'll need help, all those sorts of things. But right relationship includes acknowledging that not all situations will allow both of us to participate in the same way all the time.
So important.
So I think I see a lot of collapse of that, particularly in organizational dynamics. So role, power, authority, hierarchy, influence. The other thing I think, one of the things that I've learned through my work of this is to learn how to really and vehemently disagree, but to still find your way back to like a higher shared intention or alignment, and to create from that, not to try to force something through a disagreement. And so there's a whole process. We don't talk about that a lot in the current Google program, but that to me, I think initially I thought right relationship was everything goes smoothly, everyone gets along, and everyone buys in. That's not right relationship. That's half.
Not it.
That's half of right relationship.
I'm so curious to learn more about that. When I was working in Amazon, we have a set of leadership principles, and one of them was disagree and commit.
Mm.
Like to that, like you can't please everybody. No decision that we ever make in this program is going to please everybody. And at some point, Google has a lot of stakeholders, and there's a lot of decision by consensus. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what, I disagree, but I commit still going back to that intention or that stake. Right. I know what we're trying to get there, and I'm deferring to you as the person closest to the work. I'm respecting you and your choices to be able to move forward. So I'm going to come back to that, Carlo, because I'm so much more curious to hear about that.
Yeah.
That example, it took me back to many of the conversations we did have around right relationship this year, specifically with Indigenous folks. That is the way decisions are made. And there is this level, I mean, I know not always, but like as a practice in many Indigenous circles, it's what you just said. It's empowering the decision. Even if you don't agree with it, you align with it. And that is something that's gotten seriously lost in this moment in time in our world. So may we have more of that.
I would love to talk about. I know you're trying to wrap up, but just one other comment on the power structures.
Yes.
And Carlo, it made me think when you were talking about this. There's a difference between authority over and with, right? Like, how do I have authority, but I also am partnering with you, and it's like a mindset and an energy and something I think in that power dynamics hierarchical structure can go really awry. And so I see the program helping leaders think about power dynamics in a way that we don't even talk about, but in a way showing up person to person versus role to role, which we do talk about. And what those differences are and how you manage that to continue to be in right relationship.
That's great. And then the co-leadership model, right, that we demonstrate in our work, I feel like that's offering another way of leading, that it's not the traditional, always one person in the front, but that we're all leaders, have an important play in the ecosystem, but also that I could share this power and authority with somebody else, which will make it that much more rich and effective. I mean, that's my lived experience of doing this work for 2 decades.
Can I offer 2 more things on this, and then we'll go to the next?
Yeah.
I think my experience, and we practice this in the program, is people want to be accounted for, even if their ideas aren't included. So what they want is like, will you account for the thing I'm saying, even if I don't get to make the decision? And this is the connection to listening: is yes, I will account for that. Here's where we can include it, and here's where we can't. That sometimes can hold the container of right relationship in and of itself. And that finding value in something that someone offers doesn't mean you agree with it. I see a lot of that collapse in organizations in the world, is that if I actually value what you just said, Heather, that means I agree with you and I have to do what you're saying. That's not the same. So part of the roadmap or the operating model, I would say, is learn to find value, but make the distinction between that and agreeing with what's actually going on.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 questions, and we're gonna model bottom lining, a skill that we bring the leaders, right? Like really get into the essence of it. So the first question: we're beginning a new season, and we're gonna explore stewardship. And this just came kind of as a natural extension of spending 15 months exploring right relationship. So just to help us start the arc, I'd love to hear, and it just off the cuff from your gut, how are you holding this term stewardship? And really you can apply it to any context.
I think for me, it probably just goes back to you're caring for yourself in this moment. Like the sustainable, the way to sustain being in this world right now is stewardship of yourself and stewardship of others. And so it's very much related to the conversation that we just had around right relationship. But for me, it's around managing myself and my resources to make sure that I can fully show up. And as Baron Baptiste would say, be a yes, have a yes energy, show up, see what can come from the conversation that you're having.
Thank you.
With one of my sons, I'm rewatching Game of Thrones, and there's a role called the House Steward. And in that era, not necessarily Game of Thrones, but go back 8, 9, 10 centuries, you stewarded a house, and a house was a legacy. It was a family. It was a crest. It was a symbol of something. So I think about stewardship is what am I being asked to care for in the time that I'm here that came before me and will come after me? And then in some of the indigenous wisdom I've engaged with and with elders, it's the concept of 7 generations. So I think of stewardship of 7 generations before me helped me experience what I am now. What am I helping cultivate that 7 generations from now? And how do my daily decisions affect that? So that's how I think about and this work and what we're doing at Google is one of the most powerful ways I'm stewarding something that came before me and will go after me. And so it's one of the reasons why I love being in this program together.
Beautifully said. So a final word from each of you around, it could be a hope, a dream, in the context of right relationship, stewardship. What are you hoping right now for?
Like for our work together, for the world, for
if
the 7 generations.
Yeah. So if you can, a micro, which is our work, and then a macro for the 7 generations, the world, the planet, humanity,
I'll go first because I want Heather to have the last word.
Great.
Because when Heather has the last word, it goes better. That's one of the things I know.
But they'll not have the Carlo injection if they don't have the last word.
No, they're going to get it right now. Well, one of the things we're up to right now in the program is we're scaling it because it's going global. So I want to, and part of my role is to help ensure our global faculty are able to steward what we've started. So my high dream is that we create a whole cast of good stewards of the coaching studio. So that's the micro in our work, and it excites me. I don't know. I find it hard sometimes when I look in the world these days to find a thread. I think what one of the things that matters to me is being a good role model of male leadership to my boys in particular. So when I go into all the rooms I go into, because of my identity and my look, sometimes some favorable assumptions go my way. And so if I can model what it means to be a good man, with convictions and courage and ferocity and compassion and generosity and those things, and 10 more of them are created as a result of that, then great.
That's why I cornered.
It's been a good week. It's why you cornered me amongst the Chardonnay grapes.
Totally. It's why I cornered you in the vineyard and say, we're going to do this. And we need Carlo Bos on deck.
It was like the Garden of Eden, just completely lock, stock, and smoking barrels.
Totally.
Yeah.
Heather Davidson, final words. What do you have for us?
Just what you said, Carlo. I just love that about you. I love that mission, that intention. And I love seeing you model that in the classroom for folks.
Thanks.
Micro. I'm thinking about the 7 generations now. And for our Googlers that have been touched in some way by this program, whether they've directly experienced themselves or they've been in our circle of activators and the program team, how do we keep this going for them? How do we keep them in the relationships that they can continue to model and practice and see and feel the differences? So that's what I'm thinking about as we scale. We're going to start to build and change the culture. And so how are we changing those systems and structures to be able to make sure that this lasts for 7 generations? And
Wow.
nothing would give me more joy to know that when I exit the workforce, that would be something that I have left behind.
May it be so. May it be so.
Yeah. And macro is just to continue to show up in my best self as much as I can be. Let my best self to continue to um, make a difference with any single person that I talk to, whether that's someone. One of the security guards in front said to me last week, "You're always smiling at me. You're always saying hi and always smiling." And I think that is how I want to continue to show up in right relationship from a macro perspective, because even those small things make a difference.
Huge.
Every interaction is a chance to make a difference or learn something from somebody else. And so as challenging myself to continue to be a yes in a world that is a little bit of a no right now.
So much respect for you, Heather Davidson. Thank you for being you and the way you show up. Carlo Bos, so much respect and love for you. Thank you both for saying yes to this conversation and
so fun
being such good stewards of right relationship. Bottom line.
Yeah. Thanks, Christine. Such a joy. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you, Carlo, Christine.